I'm Ethan. I'm 34, live in Austin, and I'm the oldest of 3 kids. My job is in software development, freelance, remote, the kind of thing my mom never really understood. She thinks jobs aren't real unless you wear a name tag or have a key to a building. It's been like that my whole life, honestly. She raised us on her own after Dad passed when I was 10. I respected her for that. Still do, in a way. But there's a difference between respecting someone and pretending they're not slowly chipping away at your self-worth every time you speak to them. Growing up, I was the good kid, not the golden child. No, that was always my sister, Kayla, the youngest. But I was the one who did what I was supposed to. I got good grades, kept quiet, picked up odd jobs to help out, and never once made waves. If something went missing, I apologized. If a chore was forgotten, I picked up the slack. It wasn't because I was spineless. It was just easier that way. Less arguing, less tension in the house. I figured if I could keep things calm, maybe Mom would notice me more. She didn't. Fast forward to adulthood. Kayla's now 28, fresh off a divorce from her college sweetheart, and back living with Mom, just until she gets on her feet again. That was 2 years ago. My brother, Mason, he's 31 and works construction up in Oregon. We talk maybe once a month. He's a good guy, just keeps to himself. Out of all of us, he was the one who actually called Mom out when she crossed the line. But he got tired of being the villain, moved as far as he could, and still be in the same country. I stayed closer, maybe out of guilt, maybe because I thought things would eventually balance out. I kept showing up. Birthdays, graduations, holidays. When Kayla needed help covering rent before she moved back in, I sent money. When Mom needed help setting up her online banking, I spent an entire weekend walking her through it. And yes, that included opening a joint savings account so I could monitor the deposits and make sure the automatic transfers were actually going through. She called me her tech guy, like I was Geek Squad. But deep down, I kept hoping that one day, she'd just say thank you. Not in passing, not with a forced hug or a dry appreciate it. I wanted to feel like I mattered, like I was more than the guy who picked up the slack while she praised Kayla for remembering to buy paper plates for Thanksgiving. It was late July when I got the call about her birthday. 60th. Big deal, she said. We're doing a nice dinner. Kayla's planning most of it. She even reserved a private room at this place downtown. Mom sounded genuinely excited for once, which threw me off. Usually, she acted like birthdays were for children. But this one, she wanted everyone there. Even Mason was flying in. That surprised me. You're coming too, right? She asked. Like it was a dare. Of course, I said. I even smiled. Wouldn't miss it. That meant coordinating 2 flights and a rental car. I was finishing up a client project and had barely slept the week before, but I made it work. I flew into Seattle early Saturday, picked up the car, checked into a small hotel nearby, and even swung by a florist to grab her favorite lilies. I didn't want to show up empty-handed. Call it stupid optimism, but a part of me thought, maybe this would be the night things felt different. A clean slate. A milestone birthday. A chance to be seen. I walked into the restaurant right at 6:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the reservation. It was this trendy little place tucked into a renovated historic building. Dim lighting, exposed brick, soft jazz in the background. The kind of spot that probably charged $18 for a side salad and called it artisan. I spotted the hostess and gave her Mom's name. She blinked. Oh, the private room party? They're already seated. Already? I checked my phone. Still 2 minutes to 7. She led me toward the back. The door to the private room was slightly ajar, and I could hear laughter. Kayla's voice cutting through the air like it owned the place. I adjusted the collar of my button-up, shifted the flowers in my arm, and pushed the door open with a small grin. And froze. They were already halfway through appetizers. Plates cleared. Wine glasses half full. A full table of 15 people, all mid-conversation. Mason was there, which shocked me. He looked like he'd just told a joke. Kayla was beaming in her off-the-shoulder white dress like it was her birthday. Some unfamiliar faces, probably her friends, laughed along. And in the middle of it all was my mom, wearing a pearl necklace I hadn't seen before. Glass in hand, smiling. No one turned to greet me. I stepped further in. Hey, sorry I'm late. Flight got in an hour ago. Kayla looked up, blinked once, and gave me a tiny wave. Oh, hey. Mom glanced in my direction, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Kayla's friend beside her and said something under her breath. I approached the table, awkwardly holding out the flowers. Brought these for you. Lilies, your favorite. She took them without looking, just handed them off to someone behind her, and gestured vaguely at the empty chair near the wall. Except it wasn't empty. Someone was sitting there. A guy I didn't recognize. Mid-30s. Sharp haircut. Designer watch. He had one arm draped behind Kayla's chair like he owned the air between them. Sorry, where should I sit? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Mom didn't answer. Kayla glanced up from her menu. Oh, we had to give your seat to Jordan. It was kind of last minute. Jordan, I repeated. My boyfriend, she said, like I was slow. Well, no, but serious. I looked around. There were no extra chairs. No space at the table that hadn't already been claimed. Every name card had been placed. Every drink order had been taken. Every detail planned, down to the deliberate absence of one person. Me. I looked at my mom again. She finally acknowledged me. This was supposed to be for people who actually matter, she said, not even a whisper. Just loud enough for the whole table to hear. And then she took a sip of her wine. I didn't say a word. I didn't throw the flowers. I didn't make a scene. I just turned and walked out. I left the restaurant, got into my rental, and sat there for a full 10 minutes staring at the steering wheel. The silence was deafening. All I could hear was that one sentence, over and over in my head like a song I couldn't skip. This was supposed to be for people who actually matter. The thing about being the reliable one, about always being the helper, the fixer, the invisible backbone of the family. Eventually, they start to believe you don't have feelings, that you're some emotionless utility, that you'll just keep showing up, no matter how many times they erase your name from the table. But that night, I remembered something. The joint account, the one I'd helped her open, the one where she moved all her savings after her old bank started charging monthly fees, the one she didn't fully understand how to manage, which is why I stayed on it just in case. So I went back to the hotel, took a shower, ordered takeout, sat on the bed in a towel, opened my laptop, and logged into the bank portal. And I saw it. Every last dollar. Sitting there like it belonged to someone who didn't think I mattered. I stared at the number. Then I moved it. All of it. Back to my account. By morning, 32 missed calls. And one family group text that began with, "Can we just talk about this?" I didn't respond to the text. Not right away. It was 6:04 a.m. and I hadn't even finished my coffee. I watched the messages come in like I was outside in a thunderstorm, safe under an awning, just listening to the rain hammer down. Mom. Ethan, please call me. Kayla, are you serious right now? Mason, what happened last night? Mom, we need to talk. You don't understand what you've done. Kayla, grow up. You're too old to act like a child. Mason, bro, just tell me what's going on. She's freaking out. I turned my phone face down. The room was still dark. The takeout box from last night was still open on the little desk beside me. I hadn't eaten more than a few bites. I felt hollow, like I'd been scraped out. But under that emptiness, something else was forming. Not rage, not even sadness. Clarity, the kind that doesn't come with shouting or tears. Just a quiet awareness that a line had been crossed, so cleanly and permanently that going back wasn't even an option anymore. The thing is, this wasn't just about a seat at a table. It wasn't just a snide comment or a forgotten name card. It was years of being overlooked, dismissed, expected to show up, clean up, cover the bill, nod along. Years of being the afterthought in a family I had helped hold together. And now, they'd finally said it out loud. I didn't matter. And yet, my money did. Let me rewind a bit. The joint account wasn't some random whim. It had started 2 years ago, when Mom called me in a panic because she'd been scammed by a fake tech support pop-up and gave someone remote access to her laptop. I spent a whole weekend on the phone with her, walking her through password resets, freezing her credit, and eventually closing her compromised checking account. She was overwhelmed, nearly in tears, and I told her I'd help her start over. We'd go to the bank together. I'd set everything up, automate her transfers, link her utilities. And I did. I never took anything from that account. Not once. It wasn't mine. It was ours in name only, hers in spirit. I even deposited $500 of my own at the start just to make sure nothing bounced. She called me her lifeline after that. Funny how fast lifelines get cut when you stop being useful. I left the hotel around 9 and drove to a park I used to visit when I lived in Seattle. It was quiet. Trees just starting to shift into that late summer yellow. I found a bench and sat there, thinking, watching a dog chase a tennis ball over and over like it had never known disappointment. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. Mason. I hesitated, then picked up. Hey. Finally. He sounded tired. What is going on? I exhaled. Did they tell you? They're yelling over each other. Mom's having a full meltdown. Kayla's calling you a thief. Jordan tried to step in and got shut down. It's chaos. Sounds about right. Did you actually transfer all the money? Every last cent. He whistled. Damn, man. There was a pause. You don't even want to hear the number? I asked. I don't care about the money. I care that you're okay. That hit harder than I expected. Mason and I weren't super close. We had that brotherly, no-frills connection where we could go months without talking and still pick up like nothing had changed. But he'd always been the one person in the family who seemed to get it. I walked into that restaurant. I said quietly, with flowers. Jet-lagged. Hungry. Just trying to be part of the damn family. And she couldn't even look at me. Couldn't even acknowledge I existed. Mason didn't interrupt. And you know what hurts the most? Not the seat. Not even the insult. It's that everyone else just went along with it. Like it was normal. Like of course Ethan doesn't get a seat. Why would he? He's just the tech guy. Mason let out a slow breath. I wasn't okay with it. You didn't say anything. I didn't get the chance. You left before I could. I nodded, even though he couldn't see. Fair. Another pause. She's demanding the money back. Not surprised. She said it's hers. I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. She said she was going to use it for home renovations. To redo the kitchen. That's news to me. Then she started talking about putting money aside for Kayla's wedding. For when Jordan proposes. Wait, wedding. Apparently he brought it up last week. I closed my eyes. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. So let me get this straight. She erased me from her birthday, handed my seat to Kayla's new boyfriend, told me I didn't matter, and the money she was hoarding was for Kayla's second wedding. Mason didn't answer. He didn't need to. I laughed again. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. She's asking if we can all meet up tonight. Says she wants to resolve this as a family. Pass. Thought you'd say that. There was a long silence. Just wind in the trees and distant traffic. Finally, Mason said, You know what the wildest part is? What? She really doesn't get it. She thinks you're doing this out of spite. Like you threw a tantrum and stole her piggy bank. She thinks I'm the problem. She always did. I sighed. Are you going back to Oregon soon? Tomorrow. Smart. She'll call again. Probably guilt you. Cry a little. She already started. You don't understand what you've done. You do, though. Yeah, I do. We hung up. I stayed on that bench until my coffee went cold and my legs started to fall asleep. Then I got up, walked back to the car, and checked my phone again. The group chat was exploding. Kayla, you're acting insane. This was supposed to be a happy weekend. Mom, I can't believe you would do this to me on my birthday. Kayla, you embarrassed us. You made a scene. Jordan, I don't even know you, but this is messed up, dude. Mom, Ethan, call me. I'm serious. I will press charges. That last one made me pause. Press charges? On her own son? For touching an account with his name on it? That was the moment something in me cracked. Not with sadness. Not with rage. With resolve. She wanted war? Fine. Let's talk about what was really in that account. Because Mom wasn't exactly great with money. She never had been. Most of the funds in that joint account, I had put them there. Over time. Little deposits. Quiet loans that were never repaid. Bills I covered without being asked. She always promised she'd pay me back, and she never did. I kept track. Not obsessively. Just enough. And that number? It was just above what I had moved last night. So now, she wanted to call it theft? I was about to remind her what stealing actually looked like. I started compiling the records. Bank statements. Transfer receipts. Texts where she asked for help with rent. Screenshots of Zelle transfers marked for Mom's meds or car payment for Mom. Every time she needed something, just until Friday, I had covered it. And now, I had proof. I wasn't going to publish it. I wasn't that kind of petty. But if she took this to court, I'd walk in with a binder labeled Exhibit A, everything I gave without complaint. I didn't respond to the group chat. Instead, I texted Mason privately. If she threatens me again, I'll lawyer up. He replied 2 minutes later. I got your back. 100%. I didn't hear anything else until that evening. I was back at the hotel, halfway through reheating my leftovers, when my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Mason. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. Then she left a voice message. I hesitated. then hit play. Her voice came through, tight with forced composure. Ethan, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not okay. You can't just take things because you feel entitled. That money was for me. For this family. You don't get to act like the victim when you're the one causing problems. You've always been dramatic, but this is a new low. I am asking you to do the right thing. Return the money. Let's sit down and talk like adults. Don't throw your life away over this. Please. Then she hung up. No apology. No accountability. Just manipulation, thinly disguised as concern. That night, I got an email from the bank. She tried to change the password to the joint account. She couldn't, because I'd already removed her access. She had no idea how banking worked online, and apparently she hadn't realized that I was the primary holder. I'd set it up that way when we opened it, at her request, because she was afraid of clicking the wrong thing. Now, she was locked out, and the messages came faster. 30 texts, then 50. Then Kayla called Mason and told him she was going to lose it, but I didn't respond. Not yet, because they didn't know it yet, but the real betrayal? It hadn't even happened. Not yet, and I was done being the one who blinked first. The messages slowed down after day 3, not because they gave up, but because I think, for the first time in my life, they didn't know what to say. That scared them more than anything. The silence, the stillness, the unfamiliar sensation of me having control. For years, they were used to me cracking first, apologizing, smoothing things over, offering some passive version of forgiveness just to keep the peace. It was my role, my unspoken contract. They lit the match, and I ran around with a fire extinguisher, trying not to make them feel bad for almost burning down the house. But now the house was on fire, and I was just watching from the street. Mom didn't threaten legal action again. Maybe she talked to someone. Maybe she realized what I already knew, that the money wasn't stolen. That if we dragged this into court, it wouldn't be me on the defense. She'd have to sit there and explain, in front of a judge, why thousands of dollars were transferred from my personal account to a joint account under the premise of helping her out, only for her to claim ownership over all of it later. Mason told me that she called an attorney, a family friend. He apparently asked her 2 questions and then told her she'd be wasting her time. After that, she pivoted to something more familiar, guilt, that same slow drip of emotional manipulation I'd grown up with. I never asked you to take care of me. If you wanted to be appreciated, you should have said something. You think I wanted to be a single mom? Everything I've done has been for you kids. But I guess that wasn't good enough. I didn't reply, but not replying didn't mean I wasn't affected. I was, more than I wanted to admit. The first week after the birthday dinner, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face at that table, calm, indifferent, cold. The way she'd said it. That offhand scoff like I was a stranger who had interrupted her meal. This was supposed to be for people who actually matter. It haunted me. It played on a loop in my head while I showered, while I ate, while I sat at my laptop trying to work. I couldn't focus. Projects piled up. I missed deadlines. Clients I had once wowed with lightning-fast turnarounds now messaged me asking if I was okay. I wasn't. The thing about being emotionally gutted by family is that it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. There's no cast on your arm. No hospital stay. You don't get flowers or sympathy or casserole. You just walk around pretending you're fine while your chest feels like it's caving in under the weight of what could have been. I left Seattle and flew home. Back to Austin. Back to my quiet apartment with its scuffed hardwood floors and fridge full of meal prep containers I'd forgotten to throw out. The second I stepped inside, I dropped my bag and sat on the floor for what felt like hours. Not crying. Not thinking. Just there. Like a ghost in my own life. For a while, I stopped checking my email. Ignored my phone. Didn't open the blinds. The bank account was there, untouched, but it didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would. Not yet. Because revenge without healing? It's just another prison. I knew I needed to get out of the hole I was in, but the climb felt impossible. Until something strange happened. I got a letter. A real one. In the mail. From Mason. No return address. Just a card with a folded piece of paper inside. His handwriting was always awful, but I could still make it out. I know you don't want to talk, and I won't push, but I just want you to know, I saw what happened. All of it. And it wasn't okay. None of it. You've carried this family more than anyone realizes, and if they're too blind to see it, that's not on you. I'm proud of you. For standing up. For drawing a line. You matter. You always have. You just forgot for a while. We all did. I'm sorry for that. I sat with that letter in my hand for a long time. Not crying, just breathing. Then, slowly, things started to shift. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't some inspirational movie montage where I cleaned my apartment and started jogging at sunrise. No thunderclap epiphany, just a decision. One quiet morning, I got out of bed, shaved, made coffee, and opened my laptop, and started working again. I replied to my backlog of emails, sent out apologies, offered discounts, delivered on late projects. Most of my clients were understanding. A few weren't. I took the hits. I updated my website, added new testimonials, rebuilt my portfolio. I even reached out to an old colleague who'd mentioned a while back that his startup needed a freelance dev for a new project. He replied within the hour. That gig turned into a steady contract. Steady contract turned into a referral. Referral turned into 2 more clients. Within 3 months, I was booked solid. And I wasn't just making ends meet. I was thriving. The money in the account? I didn't touch it. Not yet. It wasn't about the cash. It was about reclaiming ownership over the life I'd given away, piece by piece, to people who treated my love like it was disposable. With distance came perspective. And with perspective came clarity. Mom had always operated from a place of control, not outright dominance. She wasn't a screamer or a tyrant, but she controlled through guilt, through silence, through the subtle art of shifting the spotlight to her pain every time someone else expressed theirs. She raised us in the shadow of martyrdom. Her sacrifices were holy, her struggles legendary. Every deviation from her narrative was seen as betrayal. So when I finally stood up, when I challenged the story she'd been telling herself for decades, that she was the glue holding us together, she panicked. Because deep down, she knew the truth. It had been me. Quiet, invisible, reliable, the scaffolding around her collapsing castle of self-pity. And now I was gone. I didn't cut her off completely. I couldn't. Not because I felt obligated, but because full detachment isn't always clean. Sometimes it's jagged. Sometimes you pull away slowly, like someone peeling off duct tape from sunburned skin. I still got texts. Your uncle asked about you. Saw something that reminded me of you today. Wish you'd just come home so we can fix this. I never replied directly, but I did something else. I started therapy. 6 weeks in, I told my therapist about the birthday dinner, about the table, about the empty seat, about the flowers she handed off like they were trash. And she said something I'll never forget. You're not selfish for expecting to be treated with dignity. You're not ungrateful for wanting recognition. And you're not dramatic for deciding enough is enough. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Around that time, I also started something else. A journal. At first, it was just notes. Fragments of thoughts. Quotes. But then it turned into more. Pages and pages of unpacking my childhood. Memories I hadn't revisited in years. Like the time Mom forgot to pick me up from a school play because Kayla had a dance recital across town. Or the time I won a statewide coding competition in high school, and she called it a cute hobby. Or how she used to tell people, Ethan's our little genius, but never asked once what I was actually working on. Writing it down didn't erase the pain, but it took away its power. And in that space, something new started to grow. Self-worth. Not the kind built on accolades or usefulness, but the quiet kind. The kind that says, I exist. I matter, even if no one claps. One day, I revisited the bank account. The money was still there, unmoved, untouched. I looked at the number, and I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace, because I finally understood. That money wasn't revenge. It was repayment. For all the times I saved her, all the times I put her needs before mine, all the hours I spent on hold with banks, insurance companies, utility providers, all the late-night phone calls, all the extra deposits, all the sacrifices I made quietly. It wasn't theft. It was recognition, and I didn't need her permission to claim it. Weeks turned into months. Life got fuller. I picked up photography again, joined a local hiking group, even started mentoring a high school student who wanted to get into coding. He reminded me a little of myself, quiet, overlooked, curious. One day he asked, "What made you want to help me?" And without thinking, I said, "Because I know what it's like to feel invisible." He just nodded, like he understood. He probably did. Then, one quiet Saturday morning, 4 months after the dinner, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my mother. In shaky cursive, it read, "I don't know what to say that won't sound like an excuse, but I miss you. I miss my son. And I'm sorry For the things I said. For the things I didn't say. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't know if you should. But I want you to know, I see it now. All of it. What you did. What you gave. Who you are. And I'm sorry for making you feel like you didn't matter. She didn't ask for money. She didn't mention the account. She didn't try to spin it. It was the first time in my entire life she had written something without adding a guilt trip or a backhanded compliment. I held the letter in my hands for a long time. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. Because maybe, for the first time, she was still, too. But I didn't write back. Not yet. Because the story wasn't finished. Not until I decided how it would end. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop hoping someone will apologize and instead begin preparing for a world where they never do. That was the space I entered after reading my mother's letter. The handwriting had trembled. The words were measured. For once, it didn't feel like a trap. No barbs hidden between the lines. No twisting of the knife wrapped in warm sentiment. But still, something held me back. Because while that letter might have been the first step toward peace, I had no illusions that it erased everything. One genuine apology doesn't fix years of imbalance. And even if her words were honest, the damage had been done in full. And so I began planning, not for revenge in the traditional sense. Not fire and fury and humiliation. That wouldn't have been satisfying anyway. I didn't want to watch her squirm. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted freedom. Freedom from the guilt. From the obligation. From being the one everyone relied on but never really saw. And to get that freedom, I had to untangle myself from the web sheets spent decades spinning. It started with a spreadsheet. I opened a new file and titled it Untethering. Every tab was a piece of me I needed to reclaim. Tab 1, Financial Entanglements. There were more than I expected. That old savings account I'd helped her set up, it had my name on it. The utility bills I'd paid in her name, some were still auto-drafting from a backup card. An old Verizon family plan that I was technically still the account holder for, even though I hadn't used that number in 6 years. I made a list, cross-referenced every transaction, called banks, closed accounts, and revoked permissions. Changed passwords I'd once set for her, after teaching her how to use a password manager, which she promptly forgot. That took 3 full days. Tab 2, Digital Footprint. This one hit harder. I'd been her de facto IT department for years. Her emails ran through an account I helped create. I was the recovery number for everything from her Amazon login to her Gmail. My address had been used as her backup delivery location. I deleted myself from every trace. I drafted a polite, but firm, email explaining how she could manage her own tech going forward. I included screenshots, links to YouTube tutorials, and step-by-step guides. No bitterness, just boundaries. The reply came 3 hours later. You're being dramatic. I didn't respond. Tab 3, Emotional Debts. This tab was the hardest. Not because it involved money or logistics, but because it required brutal honesty. I listed every favor I'd done. Every time I drove 3 hours for a 10-minute visit. Every holiday, I skipped with friends to sit through a dinner where my presence was barely acknowledged. And then I rated each one. Not by effort, but by emotional cost. How much of myself had I poured out for a drop of validation? That list made me sick, but it also made me furious. And that fury, unlike guilt, was useful. Because I realized something. The apology she'd sent? It had come after I'd taken something back. After I had finally done something that cost her. That letter wasn't a revelation. It was a reaction. And maybe she meant every word. But it didn't come from seeing me. It came from losing me. That's when the idea came. Not revenge. Not retaliation. But clarity. See, part of what kept me tied to her was this myth she'd built. That without her, I wouldn't be who I was. That I owed my success, my grit, my drive, to her sacrifices. That even if she was harsh, even if she was cold, it was because she made me strong. But what if I proved, publicly, that I had made myself? I started with a blog. A small one. Quiet. Anonymous at first. Each post was a story. About my work. About burnout. About emotional labor. About growing up in a house where love was conditional on usefulness. I didn't name names. I wasn't out to shame her. I wasn't airing dirty laundry. But I was reclaiming the narrative. And people found it. Not millions. But enough. A few hundred subscribers. A few shares. A message from someone saying, I thought I was the only one. Then another. This made me feel seen. I started hosting small webinars for freelancers dealing with boundary issues. I wrote threads on how to balance empathy with self-respect. I even got invited to speak on a podcast about emotional burnout in the digital age. It snowballed. And with every story I told, I felt lighter. One of the most shared posts was titled "The Empty Chair." It wasn't detailed. It just described the feeling of walking into a room expecting to be welcome and realizing you weren't even counted. It ended with a line I'd written in a daze at 2 a.m. Sometimes, the only way to reclaim your place is to stop begging for a seat and build your own damn table. A month later, I got a message. It was from Kayla. "So now you're writing about us online? You're disgusting. You think this makes you noble? You're embarrassing yourself." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I smiled. Because she was wrong. I wasn't embarrassing myself. I was freeing myself. And her anger? It told me one very important thing. They were watching. They were reading. They knew. That's when I decided it was time for the final phase of the setup. Not a stunt. Not a showdown. A demonstration of everything I had built without them. An old mentor of mine reached out. He'd read my blog and wanted to collaborate on a digital course for freelancers. Something to help people transition from overworked employees to empowered independence. We spent 2 months building it. Recorded lessons. Built templates. Launched it through a platform that took care of distribution. And it took off. Not viral. Not explosive. But steady. Profitable. I made more in the first 3 weeks than I used to make in 3 months. With every sale, I felt like I was rewriting my past. Not erasing it. Not pretending it didn't happen. But flipping the script. Taking everything I learned from being invisible and turning it into value. It culminated in one moment I'll never forget. I got an invitation from Mason. His birthday. Low-key dinner. No pressure. I almost said no, but I went. And when I walked into that small restaurant, he stood up and hugged me like I was the only person who mattered. We ate. We laughed. And at the end of the night, he handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo. A scan of a drawing I'd made when I was 12. It was me at a computer, wearing headphones, surrounded by stars. The caption I'd scrawled at the bottom said, "One day, everyone will know what I can do." Mason looked at me and said, "They know now." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. But the setup wasn't done. Not yet. Because now that I had a platform, a voice, and a plan, there was one last move to make. One that wouldn't just close the chapter. It would rewrite the ending. And when the time came, it would be public, precise, and absolutely unforgettable. There's a difference between revenge and retaliation. Retaliation is hot, messy, and emotional. It's screaming at someone in the middle of a crowded room. It's throwing a drink in their face or posting something you can't take back. But revenge? Revenge is quiet, clean, unapologetically strategic. And mine started with a wedding invitation. It arrived mid-January. Thick cardstock, gold trim, loopy cursive that looked like it had been copied from Pinterest. Kayla and Jordan were getting married. To no one's surprise, it was fast. She'd always been impulsive, chasing love like it was oxygen. But what did surprise me was this line near the bottom of the invitation. "We kindly request monetary gifts to support our new life together." Of course. They weren't just inviting me. They were expecting me to give. After everything. After the birthday dinner. After the insults. After the cold silence. I almost laughed. But I didn't toss it in the trash. I tucked it in my drawer, right next to my mother's letter. Not as a keepsake, but as a cue. Because now I had all the pieces. Let's recap. They'd taken me for granted for over a decade. They'd erased me from family events and conversations. They humiliated me on my mother's birthday, the same event I rearranged my life to attend. They insulted me after I walked out. They only reached out when they realized the financial rug had been pulled. They never once tried to understand why I finally snapped. And now, they wanted money. But I wasn't going to just deny them that. I was going to give them exactly what they gave me. A show. Remember the blog? The online course. The audience that had slowly grown from a whisper to a low, steady roar? Well, around the time the wedding invitation landed on my doorstep, I got a different kind of email. A producer from a mid-sized digital docuseries channel had read The Empty Chair, the post about being left out, about emotional invisibility, about reclaiming self-worth. They wanted to feature me. They were running a short-form series about family estrangement, silent strength, and late-blooming self-discovery. Nothing salacious. No tabloid drama. Just clean storytelling. I agreed, with one condition. I wouldn't name names. I wouldn't drag my family publicly, but I would tell the truth. And I did. The episode was filmed over a weekend. B-roll of me working from my apartment, walking downtown, flipping through my childhood sketchbook, reading the journal entries that had once saved me from the pit. Then, me sitting on a stool. No script, just story. I told them about the birthday dinner, the flowers, the empty chair, the joint account, the aftermath. And I ended with this. When someone tells you that you don't matter, believe them. Then show them, quietly and fully, just how much you do. The video went up a week before the wedding, and it exploded. Not because of me, but because people recognized themselves in it. The silent child, the forgotten sibling, the helper who never got thanked. Thousands of comments, tens of thousands of shares. One stood out. This story broke me. My family did the exact same thing. I didn't even know I needed to hear this until now. Thank you. But what mattered more was the message I got 2 days later. From Kayla. It simply said, "What did you do?" She knew. They all knew. They didn't need their names mentioned. They recognized the scenes, the lines, the truth, and the fallout was glorious. I found out later from Mason, who, by the way, sent me a voice memo just laughing for 3 straight minutes, that Kayla had a meltdown. Jordan's parents saw the video, put the pieces together, started asking questions. Suddenly, Kayla's carefully curated narrative, that she came from a close, supportive family, began to crack. Mom tried to defend her, but everything she said sounded hollow. Because for the first time, people were seeing me, not as the problem, but as the product of neglect. The day before the wedding, I received one last message from my mother. A single sentence. "Congratulations, Ethan. You finally made yourself the center of attention." And she was right, but not in the way she meant. I didn't need the spotlight. I didn't crave applause. What I did need was for people to know I existed, that I had always existed, that my story was real. I didn't go to the wedding. Instead, I made a donation in Kayla's name to a nonprofit that supported survivors of emotional abuse and family estrangement. I sent the receipt to her inbox. No subject line, no message, just the receipt. The week after the wedding, I got a letter, a real one again, from Mom. It was shorter than the first. "I'm done trying. You win. Hope it was worth it." There was no return address, no signature, just that. I burned it, not out of spite, out of ritual, because I was finally done. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. It took months, years really. But now, when people ask me about my family, I don't hesitate. I say, "We don't talk anymore. It's better that way." And when they ask what happened, I smile and say, "They left me out of one dinner too many." Because sometimes, all it takes is one empty chair to see the whole table clearly. And I'm done asking for a seat. I built my own table, and the view from here is perfect.